Hello, my name is Pastor Schroer from Redeemer Lutheran Church. Tragedy recently struck our tiny Texas town. A 16-year-old cheerleader from our local high school was murdered. The whole town has been horrified and heartbroken. The excitement of our two area football teams making it to the state semifinals and the buzz of the holiday season have now been muted by mourning. I can only imagine what Christmas will be like for her family this year. And sometimes God gives us picture-perfect Christmases. The whole family gets together, the food is delicious, the house is immaculate. Our celebrations end up looking like a Norman Rockwell painting. Sometimes, though, Christmas is covered in sadness. You slave to get the house ready, and then your son calls and says he isn't coming. Or maybe one of your relatives says something hurtful, and Christmas at the house is filled with awkward tension. Or maybe like young Lizbeth's family, you will face Christmas this year with an empty chair at the table. We want so badly to have joy-filled Christmases. We want to be with our families. We want everything to be picture perfect. But then oftentimes, Christmas is covered in sadness. The first Christmas was no exception. We all know about Bethlehem and the manger. We know about the shepherds and angels. We know about the visit of the wise men. But oftentimes we stop there. We fail to finish the story. When the wise men didn't report back to King Herod, the king became furious. Obsessed with protecting his throne, he ordered the murder of all the baby boys in Bethlehem and its vicinity. When I was a kid, I would often imagine legions of Roman soldiers going home to home, slaughtering hundreds of children. The truth, however, is that Bethlehem at the time was a tiny village. Experts estimate that there would have been no more than a couple dozen little boys under the age of 2 living in the area at the time. Still, imagine the horror. Imagine the mothers screaming. Imagine the fathers futilely trying to protect their sons, parents weeping for their children and refusing to be comforted. The joy of the first Christmas was tainted by tragedy. Yet how often doesn't that happen even today? Think of young Lizbeth's family. Think of the people in the Ukraine and Russia, Israel and Palestine. Think of all the senseless killings and empty chairs this Christmas. What do we do when tragedy taints Christmas? How do we respond? What do we tell those who are hurting? We remind them what Christmas is all about. Christmas isn't about getting together with your family. Christmas isn't about perfectly manicured trees and delicious food. Christmas is about God loving us so much that He was born as a human being 2,000 years ago to take our place and die our death. God thwarted Herod's plans to kill baby Jesus. But 33 years later, He allowed Pontius Pilate to crucify Him. Why? Because that was His plan from the very beginning. Jesus came to die so that you could live with Him forever in heaven. God has plans for you, and those plans end up with you in heaven. And He often allows tragedies and trials as a part of His plans, even though we may not be able to see or understand why He is doing what He is doing. And in that sense, maybe the slaughter of the baby boys in Bethlehem is the most fitting way to end the Christmas story. It's the most real for us as we live in this tear-stained world. Our celebrations, our lives are seldom picture perfect. They are often tainted by tragedy and covered in sorrow. But because of that baby born in Bethlehem, we know that God's plans end with us in heaven, where there will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain. And that's why we can celebrate Christmas this year, even when it's covered in sadness.